أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذي أذهب الله عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي وفوض أمري إلى الله بصير بالعباد. Assalamu alaikum jamian wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone to another session into Ayatul Kursi, the verse of the throne. So today I was inspired to talk a little bit from the tafsir that Sheikh Fadlallah Hairi has done on Ayatul Kursi. And really, I found some amazing keywords to take the discussion into today, which opens a completely different dimension of understanding this verse. So last time we were talking about Shafa, and today also I want to talk a little bit about the intercession part, but I want to look at it the way Sheikh Fadlallah Hairi is seeing it. And there are two, three key points which I want to take from his work into Ayatul Kursi before we move forward. So now over here, when we say that he possesses whatever is in the heavens and whatever is in the earth, who can intercede with him except by his permission. So for this, Sheikh writes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who encompasses all the creational states, actions and attributes that can be experienced, either visible, hidden, near or far. The laws of Allah are absolute and no interference or intervention can change them. Now, this is what I wanted to bring our attention into, that over here, Sheikh is looking at the idea of intervention or interceding as the laws that have been designated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what that does for us, what happens when we have this consistency, this predictability, this reliability on the idea that, for example, the gravitational force is consistent, that we can rely on the idea that tomorrow morning when I wake up, I will still be able to walk on earth. For example, the system of night and day. How does it impact our everyday life when we can have this understanding that no matter what happens, night will end and day will come? So this is what Sheikh is saying over here, that the laws of God are absolute and no one can intercede, no one can change it except when he permits. So this is something which gives us a sense of groundedness and a sense of trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he's not erratic. He's not like human beings who can get triggered emotionally and change decisions. So, we grow up thinking that if we do this, God will be happy with me. If I do that, God will get angry with me. And that keeps us on our toes. It keeps us on our fence. So recently, in one of my counseling sessions, I was talking to somebody and I realized that the amount of guilt sometimes that we get filled with towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we were taught with a good intention, no doubt. Our teachers taught us khashiyat meaning being careful about our day-to-day, moment-to-moment actions, which we do with mindfulness towards Allah's presence, which is also what we call is taqwa. But it must stay within its bounds. It must stay within its limits. Why? Because these limits then keep the psychological and the emotional health in check. If we are filled with way too much guilt or shame or fear, and there's an overdrive in the alarm system within us, which is constantly telling us, I'm doing something wrong, something is going wrong, I will make a mistake. then that is extremely unhealthy for us, right? Because whenever I talk about Quran, I always try to keep in mind human psychology, because we know Islam is Deen-e Fitrat. Deen-e Fitrat means with Fitra, it aligns with our human nature. And our human nature does not thrive in stress. It doesn't thrive with a constant stream of cortisol being released constantly, which is a hormone that we release when we're under stress. And stress happens when there is a we feel like danger is imminent. We feel like something bad can happen. We feel like something is something I need to be alert about. For example, our ancestors who didn't have physical safety, living in jungles and mountains, they were always on guard. And what that does is that it puts us in a place of constantly needing to guard ourselves. Now, what I find really beautiful about Ayatul Kursi is that in this verse, Allah talks about He doesn't sleep and He doesn't feel drowsiness, and we use it for protection, right? So I personally think that I'm going to say something, and I want all of you to just take a few seconds and analyze how it makes you feel. Okay, I personally think that most of us today are struggling because we don't feel safe. We don't feel safe emotionally by other people. We think people will take us for granted. We don't feel safe financially. We don't feel safe in terms of what can happen in future. So I want you all to close your eyes and for a few seconds, just say this under your breath. I am safe. I am protected. I am supported. I am safe. I am protected. I am supported. And if any of you have anything to say, please do write in the chat, because I personally feel that the sense of feeling unsafe has kind of become a core reason for our stress today. We want to feel secure with our finances. We want to feel secure with our health. We want to feel secure for our children. We want to feel secure in so many ways that we feel unsafe. And what faith asks for is to rely on a God who can be trusted, who is worthy of being trusted, who should be trusted because he has proven that about himself. Why? Because since time unknown, like I said, his laws don't change. He doesn't change his mind from moment to moment. He doesn't get triggered. These are erratic qualities of a human being. These are the imperfections in a human being. So while we have been created as representatives of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we hold a part or a few qualities that emulate God, that are a mirror reflection of God. They're not really Him. We only hold the mirror to reflect His qualities. We don't truly hold those qualities. So we are imperfect and flawed in that way because we are not trustworthy entirely. We cannot be trusted completely. It's so interesting that my daughter, she, alhamdulillah, is a smart kid, very responsible, and she's almost like my mother. And growing up, you know how kids are, she would openly tell me, no, I don't trust you. Look, you made this mistake. I don't trust you. Look, you did that. And I would be shocked because I didn't grow up talking like that with my mother. I mean, when my mom would say, I'm your mom, you got to trust me, I'd be like, yeah, sure, you're my mom. And deep down inside, I would see that my mom makes mistakes. She forgets things. But then, you know, you're naive like that and you're like, yeah, I can trust. But kids these days, they're so smart and they're so observant and they're so emotionally intelligent that they know when we falter, when we make a mistake. So she would openly tell me to my face, she'd be like, no, I don't trust you. Remember you forgot to come to my school meeting. Remember you forgot to buy my friend something you promised. And I'm like, why does this kid remember everything? So there is an inconsistency in human beings, because of which there will inevitably this deep core feeling of mistrust. Because if someone promises us something, they can even die tomorrow. I can die tomorrow. So truly, can we really trust someone who is dependent on another entity? Any human being is contingent, dependent on a higher entity who is God. And I say this again and again, which my teacher taught me: how can a beggar rely on another beggar? That beggar also receives from the master. So why not rely directly on the master of the masters? So we're all beggars to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and our true trust can only come in him, because he has given us reason to believe in him and have trust in him. No one can intercede except whom he wills. So we see that traditionally in Shi'i understanding, we would say that, okay, this is a verse about wasila and tawassul and shafa'at. So on the day of judgment, only very few selected people can do shafa'at for other people. We had all, I mean, we talk about, Shafa'i Mehshar, Saqi Kausar, we say that Allah has given some people that status where they can do shafaat and they will save us. But I have mentioned this earlier, and I'll reiterate it, that my teacher, Sheikh Arif, would always explain shafaat in terms of uh, following in the footsteps. If we want to find the faster way, interceding, right? Somebody interjects, intercedes, gets in the way and makes the path shorter, easier, gets you inside Jannah, for example, faster than other. How do you do that? Is that you follow the fastest path, you follow the best route to that destination, right? So so what we want to understand is that shafaat is actually the idea of following in the footsteps of our role models. All right. And over here, we want to understand that then shafaat becomes two-way. One is when they have been put on us in a place, they have come to a place where they hold that ability to gauge and help and guide us to the right path, because they have purified their soul to that extent. And the other part is, have I purified myself enough to be conducive to receiving that guidance? Have I worked on myself enough to understand the guidance they're trying to pass on to me? Have I come into enough state of surrender where I can let go of my ideas and say, okay, let me hear what they're saying and I trust them? So while there is no blind trust, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala constantly tells us to afala yaqilun, why don't you think, why don't you use your aql? Afala yatadabbarun, why don't you do tadabbur? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is constantly telling us. He has also given us his signs, ayat, right? So our scholars these days who reach a very high place, we call them ayatullah, signs of Allah, right? Then we have ayat of Allah in the Quran, the verses where we can learn from. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Sanurihim ayatina fil afaqi wa fi anfusihim. There are signs on the horizons for you, and then there are signs within you. So there are signs in all forms everywhere, but the signs need to be deciphered. The signs need to be understood. And for that, we need to have a certain level of cognition, certain level of ability to decipher this symbolic language through which Allah speaks to us and guides us and sends his messages to us. Now, further on, Sheikh writes that when Allah says illa bi idni, means that everything exists according to his decrees and laws, known and hidden. What is before them and what is behind them. Ma baina aydihim wa ma khalfahum means that he encompasses time. Now, over here, there are two, three things that I'm very excited to discuss. What is before them and what is behind them, which means that that he, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, encompasses time. Why? Because time is measured with past and future, right? That's how we calculate time. How long has it been that you are here? How long will the session go on? This is how we calculate time. We also know constantly with our discussions that the present moment is the only moment which is real, which surpasses time. We have talked about how when we're pursuing our, our activities that we enjoy, when we pursue our fun things, like when I paint, you lose track of time. You go beyond time, right? So what Allah is saying over here is that there's a quality of God where he is above time and space. I'm just going to read from here and then explain. So what is before them and what is behind them, ma baina aydihim wa ma khalfahum, means that he encompasses time. They cannot comprehend anything of his knowledge except what he wills. Wala yuhituna bishay'in min ilmihi illa bima sha. What he wills is the degree of one's closeness to him, which is directly proportional to one's remoteness from other than him. The more one sees the way of the Lord in everything, the more one will have knowledge of the Lord. His throne, Kursi, is the seat wherein the inhabitant of non-time and non-place sits. It spans the heavens and earth. In essence, there is only Allah. Everything is created and sustained by Allah. And I think it was really important for me to read it because the first part connected very well with the lower part where it's talking about the idea of time and space. So the people who are beyond time and space, we have talked about it at length before also, are the walis of Allah, in which which Allah mentions in the Quran and says, La khawfun alayhim wa lahum yahzanun. These are the people who don't worry about their future and they don't grieve over their past. They're the people of the present moment. And we had also discussed this in our discussions on Surah Wal Asr. I don't know if I have done this over here or not, but I'll just repeat myself that in Surah Asr, which is also connected to time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Wal Asr innal insana lafi khusr, meaning people who are captured within time, they are in a loss, right? People who are associated with past and future, they are in a loss, which is exactly what is being said over here, what Sheikh is saying, that the people who are on the throne are the people who are the inhabitants of non-time and non-space. So I am going to add my bits over here a little bit towards the end of the third part of this discussion. But first, I want to take you step by step into the understanding of the present moment, and then understanding what Allah is saying about the people who attain His knowledge. Now, the present moment is so pivotal in the journey to awakening because the present moment is real and haq. To reach haq, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to reach our truth, which is our inner potential that needs to be actualized and manifested. I constantly talk about reaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as emulating Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and trying to pursue the perfection that we are capable of in order to manifest our highest potential. And when I connect these two ideas, I always say that in order to come close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to become like Him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is haq, He is truth. And in order to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, qad arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbahu. When we know ourselves, then we can know Him and then we can reach Him. So we have to find our own truth. So the moment of exploration, the moment of unveiling the truth always, always lies in the present. We cannot be dissecting the past or dissecting the future constantly to reach insights, to reach deeper knowledge, which I have explained before is the knowledge of the presence, not knowledge of the book. It's not the books that we read that can guide us to our personal, individual, unique path to our actualization and transcendence. We have to access the infinite city of knowledge which lies within us. And in order to do that, we have to enter the present moment where we become free of worry and we become free of grief. And in order to do that, again, Ayatul Kursi becomes such an important lesson because it is reminding us to trust God. The only way we enter a state of peace, the only way we let go of our anxieties, the only way we can say that everything is not going to go wrong. We can say that everything is not going to get messed up. I will falter. I will make a blunder. I will mess up my life. I will mess up my children's life. All of these fears, we can only and only surpass them when we can rely on someone who is worthy of reliance, who is worthy of trust, because who has never let us down, the one who can carry the earth at a speed of thousands of miles per hour and still sustain us without feeling dizzy, the one who has sustained these heavy celestial bodies in vacuum, in space, and for thousands and millions of years, it has sustained life. He has given us enough reason to ponder and reflect so that the trust seeps deep into our hearts. That's why it's very important to sit and reflect upon these manifestations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's also this really interesting idea that I have been looking into recently, is the idea of fractals. So those of you who are interested in geometry, who look into physics and science, patterns, art, the Fibonacci sequence or the golden ratio. If you look into fractals, what fractals say is that the structure of the atom looks, if not identical, then almost exactly like the structure of the galaxies in space. So a lot of this discussion and this research into fractals is now showing to us that when you go deeper and deeper and deeper into microscopic imaging of certain objects, they start to repeat the same pattern that they looked as a macrocosm. So the the biggest image that we find in space, in the universe, we find the exact same blueprint or a copy of that image in atoms and cellular level and quantum level. And what they're trying to explain is that universe is connected in such a way that its infinity is almost connected as a microcosm and macrocosm. So when we talk about as above so below, whatever you see on the horizon is what you see within. It also is a very literal scientific phenomena that whatever is within us is also in the heavens. The atom in my cells replicate the structures of the galaxies. And some people say that what if this one Milky Way galaxy is actually just a neuron in somebody's brain? Some giant's brain has this neuron, which is the Milky Way galaxy, and you keep going into it until you reach the human mind, and inside the human brain cell you see the same universe being repeated again and again. There is a movie based on a story by Dr. Seuss. um I don't know if anyone can remember the name of that story. They made a movie on it, in which there's an elephant who finds a speck, and inside the speck there was a whole world. I will try and find the name. It was a really eye-opening cartoon movie made for kids, and it was really phenomenal because they showed that the elephant finds a tiny speck, and inside the speck there was a whole city with cars and everything, and people were living inside it. So Dr. Seuss was really onto something, I think, way ahead of his time. So coming back to our discussion, I feel that what Sheikh is talking about over here is that he is reminding us that there is a way to live a life in the present moment. Yes, Horton Hears a Who. Horton Hears a Who. Lovely, Ravan. Yes, it's an amazing movie. Please do watch it. It's a good opportunity to watch something with our kids, because it's such a deep movie. Thank you so much, my sweetheart. Okay, so coming into the present moment, reflecting and meditating, understanding the enormity, the power, the consistency that God has given us, we come into a state of gratitude for the sense of support Allah Ta'ala is giving to us, for the sense of strength and groundedness and trustability that He is inviting us to enter, because then we can let go. We can let go of our stress and worry, and we can rely on His planning and His goodness. And that is why Ayatul Kursi is also recommended to be read for protection, because then you let go. I know, my friends over here, when things get really bad in Karachi and safety becomes an issue on the road, so people will keep guards in their cars. And one of my friends' father-in-law would, I remember she told me this, and she said, my father-in-law said to me, either you keep guards for your safety or you read Ayatul Kursi. I won't let you do both. Because he said, either you believe in it or you don't believe in it. So he had a point there. But of course, everyone is not at that level of faith. Mashallah, he had that faith. So if we have this kind of understanding, um, I'm also reminded of a very esteemed judge in Pakistan. He served in the law of court at a very high level over here, and I was fortunate enough to sit with him and talk to him very recently. And he was telling me how he had given a judgment against a very big mafia over here, when he had to give a judgment on a certain case. So when he gave the judgment, um, you know, uh, the reason for that judgment was that a very, very esteemed scholar in the country had been murdered. And um, he says that when I was working on that case, these mafia people would call me and they would say, we know where your son is right now. He's at this position now, he's at this position, he's opening the door of the car now, he's sitting in the car now, he's traveling now. So what they were trying to do was they were trying to harass him, they were trying to scare him, they were trying to say that, if you don't listen and if you don't do what we're going to ask you to do, um, we're basically going to kidnap or whatever, murder your son. So the army personnel from the government, they reached him and they said that, sir, we need to protect you and we need to put you in an in an escort, and we need to put you in an entourage, and you've got to be more careful, etc. So he said that, I know that if I'm meant to die, I will die. And if my son is meant to die, he will die. And when our time will come, and you won't be able to stop it. And it was such a powerful, story for me, because in the end, that is the truth, isn't it? In the end, we have to understand that our time is decreed to some extent, and the good that is in our path is not going to leave us, and the bad which is in our path, that is going to reach us no matter what. But over here, I want to explain something which Sheikh has written over here, which is very important, because I do not mean to say that we don't have control over our lives, and I definitely don't want to make it sound like we're puppets. But there is a very, very fine understanding between free will and destiny, which I always come upon because of the discussion on the present moment. So as I said, that the present moment is the key moment, and it is the moment of reflection, and it is the moment of co-creating our life as well. So what does Sheikh say over here? He says that the people who who are given the knowledge by God, and they only receive knowledge, uh, they cannot comprehend anything of his knowledge except what Allah wills. Okay, and then he goes on to explain it. He says the will of God, okay, the will of God to permit any one of us to understand to that extent is not just because, oh, I'll roll a dice and decide who will understand more, or oh, I like that person more, so I'll give them more. What he's saying is that, see, first Allah said that my law and order cannot be broken. So when he says I'm just, when he says I'm adil, that cannot be bypassed no matter what, right? No matter who you are, his adil cannot be bypassed. So Allah is very wise in telling us this idea first, that my laws cannot be broken. You cannot intercede without my permission. And then he goes on to say that the degree to which Allah chooses who will gain his knowledge is the degree of one's closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which he says is directly proportional to one's remoteness or one's distance away from everyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I found this a very, very profound insight into understanding the law of God and how the system of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala works, because over here Allah is saying, Sheikh is saying that the degree to which we are close to Allah is directly proportional to one's distance away from Allah, distance away from those who are other than Allah. So if we, look at the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, and we see how as he was gaining marifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and who he is, he was starting to distance himself from the religion of his ancestors. The more he was moving away from the people and their ideologies, the more his faith was growing. So the knowledge that Ibrahim receives, the reason why Allah calls Hazrat Ibrahim one of the most beloved and calls him Khalilullah, is because he was so close to Allah. And he was close to Allah because of his distance away from other than Allah. Now, we want to give attention to this idea that sometimes we feel indebted to the people in our lives, especially our parents, our ancestors. We feel indebted to caregivers. We feel indebted to people who have done something for us in our lives. I would say that a lot of times women whose husbands support them, they feel indebted to their husbands, and they feel like, oh, he provides for me and he does this for me, he does that for me. So, I shouldn't make him upset, or I shouldn't turn around and disobey him or her, or I should try and keep them happy because they at least they deserve this much for what they've done for me, right? But again and again over here also, it becomes a lesson in Tawheed to remember that whatever reaches us, the blessings that reach us through our well-wishers, has also reached us with Allah's mercy and Allah's decision to give that to us. And in the end, those blessings belong to Allah and they come directly from Allah. These humans are just a means. So we have to be very careful with our boundaries and understanding that, for example, Hazrat Ibrahim, they say that some of the scholars say that Hazrat Ibrahim was not with his real father. He was his stepfather, or he was his uncle, or someone like that, right? Now, and scholars discuss this because there is a belief that a prophet can only be a son of a prophet. And the story of Hazrat Ibrahim indicates that his caregiver was a idol worshipper. So because of that, they make this, speculation that perhaps Ibrahim was not being taken care of by his real father. Now, when we look at Hazrat Ibrahim, if we look at it and we say, okay, these people were his caregivers and well-wishers, and perhaps, they took care of him, and they were bringing him up and he was a child. Now, can you imagine someone who's not even your biological father, who takes care of you, feeds you, gives you food, gives you education, and you turn around and you break their idols? And one would say, oh my God, like, हम उर्दू में कहते हैं थोड़ा तो लिहाज कर लेते हैं, थोड़ा सा तो ख्याल कर लेते हैं. Why he should have been a little more considerate, because this guy has done so much for him. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very clear with his boundaries. You see, and I have repeated this before also, that even with our parents, Allah is very clear that when your parents are taking you towards something of shirk, they're taking you away from haqq and truth. They're taking you away from your journey to your spiritual actualization, your transcendence, your connection to Allah. If they're taking you away from that, then you don't owe them anything, right? And in the Quran, when Allah says, don't even say uff to your parents, that uff is in character, in akhlaq. And we see that in the time of the Holy Prophet, there were many youth who came into Islam, and their ideologies were clashing with their ancestors and parents who were worshipping idols, Lat, Manat, Uzza. They had so many idols, 365 idols at the Kaaba. And the elders were very upset with the youth from changing their religion. And what we see Prophet doing is that a man comes to the Holy Prophet and says that my parents are very upset with me for changing my religion. What should I do? And the Prophet said, you will go back, you will practice your religion, but at the same time, now you will show double, triple your good character to them, good akhlaq to them, be more helpful, be more kind to them, speak to them nicely, spend more time with them. So in terms of ikhlaq, as a son, Prophet Muhammad advised this man to be a better human being, more evolved human being, more refined in his character. But he did not ask him to compromise on the principle of his faith, on his belief system. That is something we are all answerable only and only to Allah, for which Allah will not take any excuse. He will not say that, okay, because of this other person, you couldn't come to the right path, or you couldn't sustain your faith or belief, and you entered a state of shirk. A lot of times, shirk looks like feeling unduly obligated to other human beings, which hinders our process of growth, which hinders our psychological growth, which hinders and creates issues for our mental health, right? When we enter our adulthood and we are now in a place of answerability and accountability to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, death can come to us at any point, any time. And we have to be very careful that we have done the fullest possible in our understanding and capacity to be accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this life and for every moment. And the accountability of every moment lies in staying in the present moment, understanding that we are co-creators of our lives, remembering to do the tazkiyah and accountability of our inner world. Are we feeling enslaved by other people? Are we feeling caged by another human being? Are we feeling suffocated? Are we feeling like somebody else's influence in my life is affecting my faith and my growth and my human potential? Is it that because of another human being, I'm not able to practice my faith in the right manner? Am I compromising on my life, in which in every moment I'm supposed to be growing, right? Remember the hadith of the Prophet where he says, a believer in one whose 2 days are not identical. Imam Jafar Sadiq says that if your 2 days were same or your day worsened, you are worse than insects. So we have that accountability. We have to be answerable for our journey. And our journey is not completely encompassed in not hurting other people. Why? For example, your capacity to help someone is $5, right? And someone is very needy and they're asking you for some money and they're saying, can you please help me? And if you go ahead and you help this person and you give $5, and when you give $5, they feel offended. And they say, you think that I would come and ask you for $5? Is that what you think is my worth? And you were doing your best. That's all you had. You only had $5. You were giving your entire wealth in that moment. Whatever you could afford, you were giving $5. The other person, instead of feeling grateful or thankful, gets hurt. Did you have an intention of hurting them? No. Did you try your best? Yes. Was that your maximum capacity? Yes. Were your intentions aligned with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do something good? Yes. You did your best, you did your good, your intentions were in the right place, and yet you ended up hurting this person. A lot of times we get stuck in situations where our parents can do that to us. They turn around and they say, if you don't do this, I'll be upset with you. If you don't marry this person, I'll be upset with you. There are certain places where parents don't have a right over us, and we need to draw those boundaries. There are certain places where our spouses don't have rights over us. There are certain places where our children don't have rights over us. They have rights, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has emphasized the rights of the parents again and again, but there is still a limit. It is not an unlimited right that they have over us, because our first right is hukukullah. We have to fulfill our hukuk to Allah first. Then comes the hukukun nas, the rights of the people. And first of them would be our parents, right? So in all of this, what I'm trying to explain is that in our journey to become close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to understand with full responsibility what are my duties to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first, because those are the duties I owe to myself in my journey, for which I will be accountable, and no one will take responsibility for that, right? There's a culture in Pakistan that people sleep very, very late, because the way work is, people start work really late. Like they'll start work, not offices, but generally stores and shops will open at like 1 in the afternoon. So there's a really bad culture here to be up late in the night. People will stay up till Fajr watching TV and going to parties and doing foods and dinners and all of those. And then of course, like, you know, a lot of times people just sleep at 2 or 3 a.m., which is not even Fajr time. And then they've missed their Fajr namaz, right? And then they sleep all day, and then they wake up at 1 or 2, and then they, you know, go to work. So, you know, a lot of times I have had women come to me and say that, you know, what should we do? We miss our Fajr because our husbands tell us to stay up all night and watch TV with them. And what do we do, you know, if we miss our Fajr? What do we do if our day goes like this and we don't feel good about it and all of that? So after a certain point, if you can't do it and you want to pray your Fajr, then you've got to say, no, I want to sleep. If you don't want to change your routine, I'm sorry, I've got to do this, right? So the problem is that a lot of times consciously we understand these boundaries, but when we actually come to doing them, there's a lot of guilt. We somehow feel obligated to other human beings for these decisions, and we feel like we need to explain ourselves to them. We need to make sure they're not hurt. We need to make sure that they're happy with us. And I say this again and again, we cannot make everybody happy because we're not ice cream. Okay, we have to have our boundaries. We have to take care of our own duties. We have to take care of our duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first. And yes, being kind and being compassionate comes first. So drawing boundaries doesn't mean that we are harsh when we are drawing these boundaries. It doesn't mean that we have to be angry and disrespectful when we draw our boundaries. We have to follow Uswatul Hasana. We have to be kind in doing those boundaries. So the formula is that in your life, in your principles, in acquisition of your potential and your destiny, be disciplined, be firm, but be kind. Be authoritative about how you want to maneuver, how you want to pilot the direction of your life and your soul journey, but do it with kindness, love, compassion, and empathy, right? And we don't want to be rigid, okay? Islam is not rigid, which a lot of Sharia based teachings make us feel. It's not rigid, it's not black and white. There's a lot in there which is so flexible. We have to understand that if, for example, this woman, she's trying to change her routine and she's trying to tell her husband that, look, I can't stay up with you all night anymore. I've got to go to sleep. I want to wake up for tahajjud or fajr. That's something I want to do for my spiritual self-care. I want to do it for myself. I don't feel good when I don't do this. I want to connect with Allah in the middle of the night. That's something I want to do. And if she says cold turkey, sorry, no TV, and from now on I'm just going to go and I'm going to do something else, it's not how human beings work. We can take it day by day, slowly, start with 1 day, then 2 days, then twice a week, then 3 times a week, and slowly get there, because that is a compassionate and empathetic way of showing, what we're doing, how we're taking this new lifestyle, and being, calm and sweet and responsible about our relationships. So at no point am I saying that when the edicts or doctrines of Islam come that we suddenly become black and white and start, changing the ways of our life, and we do these things. We have to take them in a calm and humanistic and holistic way. So the idea that I was trying to say is that if someone does that, right? If a woman says that, okay, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this slowly and I'm going to gently make him understand, for example, I would understand. I'd be like, yes, sister, it's good. You're fine. I understand it's a difficult situation to be in. I get it completely. Don't worry about it. Let's take it slow. If I can understand it, I'm a stranger. I'm not even related to this woman. I'm a stranger. And if I can have the compassion to understand her situation and have the empathy to, say, yeah, okay, it's fine, then imagine Allah is saying, I love you, I'm closest to you, and I love you more than 70 mothers, right? A mother's love is way more than a stranger's love, and that too infinite love. So how will he not understand? The intention has to be sincere. The intention has to be in the right place. As long as the intention is not to fool God, as long as the intention is not to fool ourselves or be dishonest with ourselves, as long as we are 100% clear in where we're going and how we're taking the situation forward, that's the sincerity of intention, right? That is what Allah wants. That is what Allah wants to see. So in this discussion where Sheikh is talking about the fact that the knowledge is given to the person to the degree to which they are close to Allah and to the degree to which they are away from other than Allah, it is very important to understand that the rights of other people have to be encompassed within the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. First comes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because within our rights to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are also the rights of the self, the rights of the soul, right? They are interconnected. Our connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and us seeking our perfection is in fact seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. So at one point when we say nafaqtahu fihi min ruhi, seeking the self, seeking the truth is synonymous to seeking God, right? قَدْ أَرَفَ نَفْسَهُ فَقَدْ أَرَفَ رَبَّهُ. So when we start becoming vigilant about our accountability to Allah, and we become vigilant about our rights towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where there should be no shirk, that there should be no obligation to other than Allah, that there should be an obedience to what Allah has asked from us, which is constant growth, then everything else can fall into place and give us how to draw the boundaries, where to draw the boundaries, where to put our foot down, and do it with the best of ikhlaq. And then the more one sees the way of the Lord in everything, the more one will have knowledge of the Lord. His throne is the seat wherein the inhabitant of non-time and non-place sits. So I have mentioned this before also, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse talks about the throne, and he talks about the heavens, and then he talks about the earth. And while this is a physical reality, it's a metaphysical reality. There is a Baitul Ma'mur, there is a Lohe Mahfuz. These are high levels in metaphysical realities which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about, which are guarded by angels at times. These are also realities again within us, which we were talking about fractals, right? Whatever is in the macrocosm is also in the microcosm. So the throne is our highest state of enlightenment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The heavens are the spiritual states that the soul can go through, because the heavens, we equate them to the journey of ascension and the journey of Mi'raj, the journey of going higher in our soul. We talked about it earlier also, are like the different levels of the nafs, the chakras. And interestingly, now I'm working on Judaic concepts in mysticism and Kabbalah, and I learned about the 7 sephirots. And the 7 sephirots are associated with 7 different prophets and their characteristics. And it's really interesting that the Jews, therefore, talk about the different levels of the soul in terms of the different characters of different prophets. And inshallah, someday I will talk about it in detail, because I had the fortunate opportunity of talking to a couple of Jewish scholars directly, and they explained so many things so beautifully. So the throne is the place where finally there is a recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Kursi, and the people who achieve this are the inhabitants of non-time and non-place. So recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again comes through the infinite moment of present moment. The present moment is the portal into infinity. The present moment is the portal into where we become co-creators. We align our intentions with the intentions of God, with the desires of God. When we take our energy back from being drained by the worries of future, by the grief of the past, and we conserve our energy into the present moment only and only to consciously create our future, to consciously set the intention of where we want to take our life, then that present moment becomes the moment of no time and no space, because that is where the infinite world of possibility lies. That is where the divine lies. And so that is the place of the inhabitants of Kursi, of no time and no space. It spans the heavens and earth. So earth is what holds the heavens, right? The body, physical body, is the outer manifestation of the heavens. In essence, there is only Allah. Allah is the single ingredient of the universe. Everything is created and sustained by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, and then Sheikh says, their preservation does not tire him. وَلَا يَؤُودُهُ حِفْظُهُمَا. Their preservation does not tire him. Nothing can ever happen except by Allah's decree. Now, I really, really, really feel that just this verse, وَلَا يَؤُودُهُ حِفْظُهُمَا, can become a mantra, it can become a zikr, it can become an affirmation that we can repeat to ourselves to get rid of this feeling of lack of protection and lack of safety. Why? Because nothing can ever happen except by Allah's decree, is reminding us that every single thing is in Allah's control. He is the guardian. And aren't we so lucky to have a guardian who is the wisest, kindest, most loving, most powerful of all entities in the world, right? What that does is that it gives us the confidence to let go of worries and fears and enter the realm of the people of no time and no space, to enter the realm of infinite possibilities. Because when we say wala yauduhu hifzuhuma, that the preservation does not tire him and nothing can happen without Allah's decree, we know that no human being can cheat us in work without Allah's permission. No human being can steal anything from us without Allah's permission. Nobody anywhere can harm us in any way without Allah's permission. And if we do experience worldly harm, if we do experience someone stealing from us or someone cheating us, then it is in the will of the all-wise, all-loving, all-protecting. That means within this also there's a silver lining, and we need to look for that. So it gives us a sense of protection. It gives a sense of security. It gives us a sense of confidence in the God who, even in perceptibly wrong things, even in apparently bad things, only and only hides good for us. There are only blessings in the disguise of the things that look evil or bad to us. So what do we have to worry about? What do we have to worry about making mistakes? What do we have to worry about losing our way? What do we have to worry about doing the wrong thing? Because our intentions are sincere. And as long as our intention is sincere, even if we make mistakes in our actions, please, please, please remember that even when we make mistakes in our actions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is only and only looking at our intentions. He is only bothered by what is inside, not what is outside. He does not waste his focus on the outer flawed actions of his beautiful human beings. He is only and only asking us to purify our intentions. So I would like to end with the last lines over here from Shaykh Fazlullah, and he says, the verse of the throne is a verse of protection. For if one abandons oneself into the knowledge that Allah rules and encompasses all, then one will be held and protected in love and mercy. And who do we want more than Allah to be our protector? We are safe, we are loved, we are supported, we are protected. I will end my session over here with a dua. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Oh Allah, we come to you with our insecurities. We come to you with our anxieties. We come to you with our nervousness. We come to you with our constant levels of stress. We come to you with our worries. And we come to you, Ya Allah, with an inability to have faith in you, with an inability to have that tawakkul in you, which can free us and liberate us. We come to you in a state of real powerlessness, real feebleness towards enriching ourselves with faith, Ya Allah. The faith that can heal our wounds, the faith that can free us from our own selves, oh Allah. We come to you with a prayer, with a pleading, with a yearning, with a seeking for you to infuse our hearts with your tawakkul and your faith and your protection and your qudrat and your love and your mercy. Oh Allah, hold us in the womb of your love and mercy, the way a mother holds a child in her womb. Oh Allah, infuse our hearts with a tangible, palpable feeling of deep love. Oh Allah, help us. Oh Allah, help us with your love and mercy. O Allah, guide us and change our hearts, for you are the one who says, Ya muqallib al-qulub wal-absar, Ya mudabbir al-layli wal-nahar, Ya muhawwil al-hawli wal-ihwal, hawwil halana ila ahsan al-hal. O the one who changes the states of the heart, O the one who changes night into day, O the one who changes people's states, change my state, change our state into the best of states. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. So, do we have any questions? We don't have any questions, and I will firstly stop the recording.